Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer deck tech, and today we're going to be talking about Orzhov Lifegain Knights. I am very excited to share this very spicy list with you. As always at the end of the video, let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about this deck? Is there a specific knight that I should have put in this deck that I did not? Or do you have suggestions for upcoming videos? Just let me know in the comment section. So another thing before we have to hop into the actual list here, we are currently on our way to 1,000 subscribers here on the channel, and we're going to be doing a huge giveaway once we get there. As of the recording of this video, we are currently at 910, so we are getting very close. If you want to be part of that giveaway, as well as be notified when the giveaway actually starts, you're definitely going to want to be subscribed to the channel, so that way, A, it helps get us to the 1,000 subs, but B, so you can be entered into that giveaway potentially. But again, you're going to want to be notified when that does come out, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when that does happen. Alright, so let's go and hop into the actual list here. So the inspiration behind this deck, it's pretty simple. It's Elenda, Saint of Dusk. I really haven't featured this in any decks on the channel here, and for those who are unfamiliar, I kind of recently built a black-white aristocrats deck, which originally it kind of started as like a vampire deck, like a black-white vampire life gain deck, and then I ended up splitting it into two. I ended up wanting to do a life gain knight deck, and then I also did an aristocrats raise the past deck. But Elenda was a card I wanted to feature in the deck and did not, and ended up building a deck basically just to really play Elenda. We're playing a whole bunch of life gain, stuff, so that way Elenda can be fully maximized, because obviously if we have at least 10 greater life than our starting life total, so if we have at least 30 life, it gets +5/+5, but then obviously it gets the +1/+1, 2, and menace as long as our life total is just greater. So overall, I really love Elenda. I think the card is really sweet, and in this deck, I think it's going to be fully maximized, just overall how good the card is. But we're also playing Knight of Dawn's Light. I've always liked this card. Like, whenever I open Dominaria United packs, whenever I open these, I'm like, oh, hey, it's like a life gain card. I obviously got to go ahead and keep those. It's just a solid card in its own right. If you gain life, you gain that much +1 instead, so it helps overall getting us to the life total we need to fully maximize Elenda. So these are the cards that definitely inspired this deck. But let's go and hop into the rest of it here. So the first thing we have to talk about, obviously, is the Knight cards, which is the whole reason you're watching this video. Let's go and hop into it here. Alright, so our 1-drops, we were playing 4 Dauntless Bodyguard and 4 Knight of the Ebon Legion. Simply put, I wanted some 1-drop Knights, and these are the knights that I think are the best. Knight of the Ebon Legion was kind of, there's a couple different knights I tossed around, but at the end of the day, this card is just really strong, so that's why I decided to play Knight of the Ebon Legion. We're also playing 2 copies of Smitten Swordmaster, so obviously the creature side of it is not very exciting. It's just a 2/1 for 2 with lifelink, but the reason we're playing it is because of Curry Favor, 1 black sorcery. You gain X life, and each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of knights you control, which is so good with just Elenda, but also the rest of the knights. Obviously, Knight of the Ebon Legion, let's say we attack in, and then boom, we Curry Favor, deal them another 2 or 3 damage, trigger the Knight of the Ebon Legion. Overall, it's just really good, and that's why I'm playing 2 copies of the Smitten Swordmaster. So, rounding out our knight cards that we're also playing, we're playing 3 copies of Adeline Resplendent Cathar. It's just really good because, spoiler alert, there's going to be a few enchantments that we're playing that's going to work really well with Adeline, but also Adeline is just a really good card, so why wouldn't we play it? We're also playing 2 copies of Werefox Bodyguard, just because it happens to be a knight. Everyone forgets that this card is actually a knight. It's just really good. It's just a nice, Banisher Priest-esque effect, which is just really good in this deck. And then personally, one of my favorite cards in the deck, we're playing 4 copies of History of Benalia. It's History of Benalia. The card is sweet. Chapter 1 and 2 make a 2/2 Vigilant Knight. And then Chapter 3, knights you control get +2/+1 until end of turn, which is going to end the game very quickly. So, huge fan of History of Benalia in this deck as well. I just really love this card. I didn't really play it in Standard. I mostly just played it in Pioneer. I lost to it a lot in Standard, though, just because the card is definitely very underrated. So, let's go and hop into the rest of the deck here. So, the non-creatures. There's 12 that we're playing in this deck. We're playing 4 copies of Fatal Push, just because Fatal Push is Fatal Push. It's just a really good card. But we are playing 4 copies of Ajani's Welcome and 4 copies of Case of the Uneaten Feast. Yes, Case of the Uneaten Feast is better than Ajani's Welcome, obviously, because you get the extra bonus there when you solve the case. But I wanted 8 of these effects just because that's how we're going to gain all these life. We're making all these knight tokens and these human tokens, which is really going to add up over time. So that way, with Elenda, we can easily get over 30 life. So that way, it's just going to be this huge life link menacing monstrosity. So that's why we're playing the 4 copies of Ajani's Welcome and 4 Case of the Uneaten Feast. So that's the entire main board, except for the lands, though, which we're going to hop into that right now, which obviously we are playing 22 lands in this deck. Overall, it's a pretty straightforward, black-white mana base with a few exceptions. So looking at our dual lands, we're playing 4 copies of Concealed Courtyard, 4 copies of Godless Shrine, and 3 Caves of Koilos as our main dual lands. We are also playing 4 Bright Climb Pathway, 1 Cavern of Souls, rounding out all of our dual lands. We're also playing 2 copies of Mutavault. Yeah, it's a knight. That's why we're playing Mutavault. It works well with all the other knight synergies in the deck. Obviously, with the Chapter 3 on History of Benalia with Trigger on the stack, we can activate Mutavault so that itself gets +2/+1, which is also just really, really neat there. And then rounding out our lands, we're playing 1 Aganjo and 1 Takenuma. They're the channel lands. Why wouldn't we play them? And then rounding out our lands, we're playing 1 basic Plains and 1 basic Swamp. And as our spicy basic land of the day, whenever I think of Knights, I think of Dominaria just because of History of Benalia. Obviously, you got the stained glass art there, which is kind of because of Benalia. So it made sense why we just played the Dominaria United basic lands. I know that these are really sweet. The foils also look really, really nice on these. I know I personally don't use these basic lands a lot because for some reason, I didn't really open that many of them, but I really, really do like these pieces of artwork. I think they are definitely some of the best in the entire game. So let's go and hop into the rest of here. What else do we still have to talk about? Well, we still have to talk about our sideboard as well as some budget options for the deck. So for those who are not familiar, we changed up the sideboarding here a little bit. So normally I used to give just kind of like a generic guide what the sideboard would look like, but I'm going to be going over specifically what cards I'm playing in my sideboard currently. But before we hop into here, I always love to mention, feel free to change up the sideboard if you like. Your metagame is going to look different than my metagame that I play in, so our sideboards might look a little bit different. I kind of take a mixture of what the, metagame is on Magic Online and Magic Arena, as well as a little bit of a mixture for what I personally play against a lot at my local game store specifically. So let's go and hop into the sideboard here. So we're playing 2 copies of Deafening Silence and 4 copies of Rest in Peace as our main enchantments, just because Deafening Silence is good against any spell slinging deck. And Rest in Peace is Rest in Peace. If anybody's playing a graveyard deck, Graveyard Matters deck, we're going to bring in the Rest in Peace. It's good against Is It Phoenix? It's good against Reanimator. It's good against, I don't even know, just whatever. If they're playing a graveyard deck, bring in the Rest in Peace. It's just really, really good. And then rounding out our sideboard, we're playing 2 copies of Surge of Salvation. Simply put, the reason I'm playing this is because of cards like Pyroclasm and Anger of the Gods. They're definitely going around everywhere right now in Pioneer, and we need to help stop that. So that's why we're playing 2 copies of Surge of Salvation. We're also playing 3 copies of Thoughtseize, because Thoughtseize is just one of the best cards in the format. Simply put, that's why we have a few Thoughtseize in the sideboard. And then we're playing 4 copies of Vanishing Verse. This card is so underrated. I mean, for 2 mana, being able to exile target mono-colored permanent is so strong. It cleans up pretty much any permanent you really need for the most part. It's just a really, really nice removal spell, and that's why I'm playing 4 copies of it in the sideboard. So that's the entire sideboard. Let's go ahead and talk about the budget alternatives for this deck. So it's pretty simple. Budget dual lands. Go ahead and cut the Godless Shrines and some of the other pricier dual and utility lands and substitute them with some cheaper lands like Secluded Courtyard is a really good one. There's a whole bunch of other ones you could also play, but that's really the name of the game. You can also swap out Adeline and Ajani's Welcome. They do go for about $3 to $4 a piece US, which I mean is not crazy expensive, but when you start getting 4 of each of those, it is going to start adding up a little bit over time. But the current list as it's constructed right now, including the Cavern of Souls, Ajani's Welcome, Adeline, and everything else, is only $198 US, which is super cheap for a Pioneer deck, but I was able to get the budget list down to only 56. All I did was trim some of the expensive dual lands. I did swap out Adeline for Worthy Knight, which also is pretty good just because it makes a lot of tokens. And then I did swap out Ajani's Welcome for Lunarch Veteran. Lunarch Veteran is not a knight, but it is a human by itself, so it does share a little bit of creature typing with the rest of the cards. But again, Lunarch Veteran is a solid card in its own right, and it's like a 25-cent card, and Ajani's Welcomes are like $3 a piece. So, it just kind of made sense to make that swap. But overall, this deck was super fun to make. I know it's one of my last decks featuring cards from Foundations in terms of Foundations being the newest set, but overall this deck was really, really fun to make. Let me know in the comment section below if you have a deck that's close to this, or if you do end up trying out this deck either online or in paper. Let me know how it runs, and also let me know if there's any changes that you would make to the deck. So that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching. The deck lists are in the description below if you'd like to check them out for yourself. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph, Matt, Arcadius, Ray, Gary, Serwanoki, and Night Red 3. If you are interested in being a channel member, it's only $1 a month, and you get access to the exclusive Commander Crane Discord, as well as other features here on the channel. So, I'm Commander Crane. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.